Order in the court. A pair of federal judges are taking action after Stanford protesters ambushed one of their fellow judges. Remember this?
It's uncomfortable to say that for many people here, your work has caused harm. My job is to create a space of belonging for all people in this institution. This is actually part of the creation of belonging.
Judges James Ho and Elizabeth Branch say they won't hire clerks from Stanford Law School after that ambush. And I should also clarify that this applies to future students, not currently enrolled law students. Andy, obviously, I'm going to go to you first. What do you think about this?
You know, Molly wrote a great book a couple years ago about Justice Kavanaugh's, the insanity of Kavanaugh's confirmation. And I was hoping that that was like the low moment, and things have only gotten worse. When I first heard the judges were starting to do this, the voice inside of me said, I wish they'd just do it and not talk about it, because this will become a thing. There'll be litigation and lawsuits. But I think they actually have to say it, because there has to be an open and notorious response to this, to say that it's unacceptable. I don't know what we're raising on these campuses, but they're not lawyers. They're not going to be able to function in the world of the law, where you actually have to have disputes where there's two sides to every story and they get worked out. That's like what we have lawyers for. So I think these judges are absolutely right. If your mindset is to cancel rather than confront, then you don't belong in the law. There's probably other places you can go, but that's not where you belong.
Right, but this definitely is backfiring on future students. And I should mention also that the dean that was involved in this also is now been placed on leave. But Molly, take a listen to what Judge Ho said in the speech to the Texas Review of Law and Politics. He said, what some law schools tolerate and even encourage today is not intellectual exploration, but intellectual terrorism. They engage in disruption, intimidation, and public shaming. They try to terrorize people into submission and self-censorship in a deliberate campaign to eradicate certain viewpoints from the public discourse. We were just talking about this 2 breaks ago.
I think it's so interesting that Judge Ho has taken this brave stand. And I think it's also worth kind of revisiting what happened here. Judge Duncan is one of the most well-respected federal judges out there. He's argued in front of the Supreme Court. He spent his life caring about civil liberties. When he was invited to speak at Stanford, protesters said that they wished that his daughters would be raped. This is not the type of conversation that you're having in a free exchange. And it's not just that the protesters, the students at Stanford Law School did this, but a dean supported them. That is why what Judge Ho and these other judges, what they're doing is so important, because Stanford itself has not taken care of the problem. Yes, they put the dean on leave, but there should actually be repercussions for the students that engaged in this as well. There needs to be a strong message sent from these schools that you learn about law, you respectfully hear other sides of an argument, and that's not what we're getting right now.
No, and Joe, I was thinking also about, there are parents out there who helped pay for their kids to go not just to law school, but to Stanford Law School. Yeah. And they see this and maybe they approve of it, but I'm sure they're rethinking things, or someone is, now that there's some judges saying, I don't want that in my court.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars it costs to go to a Stanford University. A lot of people can't afford that, obviously. And where are they getting their cues from, by the way, right? Not just from academia, but from social media, where we talked about so many young adults live on. They see Twitter censoring accounts, suppressing free speech. Facebook doing the same thing. They say, oh, I guess that's okay because major corporations are doing it. I'm old enough to remember Condi Rice at my state university, Rutgers, where my kids will not be going, right? The football team's not very good anyway, and I can't deal with that. But also, they actually banned Condi Rice from coming. She was supposed to speak at their graduation. Condi Rice, the first female black Secretary of State, and you're saying that she isn't welcome at the university after she was hired to do that commencement speech. So we even saw it with Charlie Kirk last week. He was speaking at UC Davis, and a 100-person brawl broke out, police officers injured, property damage, all over what? A guy who runs Turning Point going there to give a speech to give his perspective? The shouting down is one thing, but there are now polls out where 1 in 5 young adults think that violence is okay to shut down speech that they disagree with. 1 in 5. That is scary.
Can I say, though, the 100 the hundreds of thousands of dollars that you mentioned is probably the most important part of this that we're not as focused on as we should be. What is that paying for? It's paying for battalions of administrators, to the point where there are now in some of these elite institutions more administrators than students.
Great point.
And they are the ones who are in charge of this, progressive method indoctrination. And more often than not, they are the ones who are whipping these kids who essentially, they're young kids. They're very impressionable. They're supposed to be the smartest ones, but still, it's not like they're the ones who are in the avant-garde here. They are being led by armies of administrators that your tuition dollars are paying for. That's what you're getting. You're sending your kids to indoctrination centers, not law schools.
Amazing.
Yeah, and Molly, back to what Joe was also talking about, all the different varieties of this kind of situation happening all over the place, and you bring in the fact that there are all these administrators. Are kids just used to this now? That's the way it works, right? Is that what they're thinking?
Right, and this is something that's happening nationwide. We have such a problem with people not actually respecting. They don't believe in tolerating other viewpoints. That's a problem across every discipline. When it comes to the law, though, it is actually really important that you're trained and you have it repeatedly emphasized. Even some of the best leftist law school administrators have worked really hard to make sure that their students are well versed in different interpretations of the law, so that when they go in front of the Supreme Court or when they go in front of a higher court, they actually can have a better chance of winning their cases. As this leftist totalitarianism seeps throughout the entire society and even our law schools, it really does not surprise us what we're seeing even in these courts with people not having a high regard for rule of law.
Yeah.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.